Welcome back, everybody. The anniversary of Roe v. Wade, and we thought we'd use the opportunity to talk about a subject certainly that was big in the presidential election. But once again on this anniversary, where is the American pulse on this? Polls say that the public is for retaining a woman's right to choose, but this is a regional issue, and you'll see state by state different rules coming out here. Let's go to Kathy calling us from Wall, New Jersey. Kathy, do you think in your lifetime we'll see Roe v. Wade overturned, and would that upset you or make you happy?
It would make me very happy. I pray for it every day. In 40 years since this law was passed, 55 million babies have been murdered, and that's more than the Holocaust. If you could imagine what 55 pairs of baby shoes would look like, that's a sight I think our young women need to see when they believe it's a choice. It's a choice to murder, and you'll have the psychological effects of that if you don't consider what you're doing when you do hear a heartbeat. It's meant to have you change
Well,
your
Kathy,
mind.
I certainly respect all opinions on this. The only word I always take a pause with is murder. Murder is a criminal action, and one of the most serious that we have in our culture here. Neither the courts use that, obviously, since it's a legal procedure, but I certainly understand your passion on your position. Let's go to Juanita. She's calling us from Baldwin in Long Island. Juanita, same question to you. Do you think there's any chance that at this stage in American history, Roe v. Wade could be overturned? Again, we did the math. It's just one Supreme Court justice. And what do you think the public reaction would be if it ever did happen?
Oh, can it be overturned? Absolutely. Anything can be. Should it be? Absolutely not. I think people will be really messed up and going back to a time when women were doing things in the dark, which would cause a lot of havoc on many people. Women are educated now, so things are done with counsel and not without thought.
Thank you very much, Juanita. Juanita brings up a point that I think sometimes people, and again, on this one, I'm not being patronizing. I really respect the opinions on both sides of this, but we don't live in a vacuum. Abortion's legal in just about every westernized nation, but certainly in Canada and Mexico. If you have means, get on a jet and go to a nice doctor's office, either north or south of the border here, or for that matter, in any otherwise sister nation. And let's remember what happened before it was there, the ugly chapter of coat hangers and back alleys. So this doesn't immediately go away if a law were to change. And that's just one of the realities. But I'm telling you, the part that nobody wants to talk about is you worked out in the Big Sky area of this country. You have one provider sometimes in multiple states here, de facto. That's saying somebody's not going to travel 400 miles to get to a provider here. What do you think that means? And now you add a 3-day waiting period to it and then everything else?
And particularly in those states where you have just one clinic, you'll have crowds of protesters outside that clinic almost every day. So if you try to avail yourself of those services, you'll be heckled, you'll be cajoled from the crowd. It really is, there's almost an intimidation campaign in some parts of the country.
Well, some states have laws against that, but I mean, do you guys think there should be any restrictions on abortion? What about third term? What about parental notification? I mean, this is it. First of all, this should be a state-by-state issue to begin with. I think
Why a state-by-state?
Because any constitutional lawyer will argue that it's not a constitutional issue. So if you're going to have that argument, then each state should have the right to pass its own laws. And in New York, we have some of the most liberal abortion laws.
I got to go to a break
here.
I'd love to keep this going, but for me, you're saying that we have a high court of the land, but while they say there's a rule, it's up to a governor in a state to basically, lead the determination what should or shouldn't be the rights of a resident depending where they fall on state lines. I never got that.
Well, I'm not a constitutional lawyer, but regardless of their position on the issue, they will tell you that it was a poorly written decision.
I think it was an intentionally open-ended one, which leads us to the debates we find 40 years later. All right. Now, before we move on, I want to remind you folks at home, keep this dialogue going online. Go over to our Facebook or Twitter page and reach out here to the RFL community. Again, what are your feelings on Roe v. Wade, and what do you think about its future? All right. When we come back, after laying out one of the most progressive agendas in the country, the bill comes due for New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. We heard what he had to say in the State of the State. We also know what happened recently as it relates to gun control in the state here. But now he's got to make the numbers add up in terms of the math of dollars and cents for New York. We'll tell you what he said today, and we'll tell you if we're buying it. Stay with us.